Nei, det starter nå, egentlig. Nei, vi ferdig. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. And thank you for joining up on this Blue Talk number 14. This is the last Blue Talk of Shipping 2025. So I'm very happy to see that not everybody has left the premises. There's still a lot of people here in Lillestrøm at Shipping. That's wonderful, because we have a great program coming up for the next 45 minutes. And it's a very relevant topic. It has to do with the geopolitical situation we were in and much, much more. The topic is on the screen here: defense fleet requirements and supplier opportunities. This is the topic of this session, which we're going to discuss. And we have first two keynotes, and I'll introduce them in due order, and then we'll have a panel for the rest of the session. And that's how I thought we would do this. So to the topic, as everybody will remember, after the Cold War, nations underinvested in their naval forces for decades. Now this is changing fast, and I got 3 examples on just that. Denmark has launched a major naval expansion plan to strengthen its maritime defense capabilities. Denmark plans to acquire over 20 new ships, including air defense vessels, Arctic ships, and icebreaker frigates. India, too, has ambitious plans. There's a major naval expansion in place to strengthen India's maritime capabilities, with a focus on indigenous shipbuilding, fleet modernization, and strategic partnerships. And indeed, also Norway. Last year, we had the long-term defense plan presented by the government, and this plan includes a major maritime expansion. At least 5 new frigates, 5 submarines, and a standardized vessel class of 28 vessels. Still, some hurdles and challenges persist before all this great tonnage is sailing. Shipbuilding industry is facing shortages of skilled labor and a lack of experience. Western nations have not built warships at scale for a long time. And of course, supply chains, now that several nations are building at the same time. Access to materials, secure delivery, and spare parts is becoming increasingly important and difficult. But also inconsistent government funding and shifting priorities make long-term planning for the industry a little bit complicated. Again, we have a great panel, and you'll see them in just a few moments. But first, we'll have 2 keynotes. Now, our first speaker is getting ready here now, is Jære. She is a Norwegian engineer and defense official who has served as the director of the Norwegian Defense Materiel Agency since March 2022. Her job is to ensure that the Norwegian Armed Forces receive cost-effective and secure military hardware. In other words, she currently holds the position of Norway's most interesting and possibly also most challenging job. Welcome to the stage, Groes. The stage is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ivar, for that great introduction. And yes, it's both interesting and challenging, my position. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for being here. I think it's this panel and us now between you and the gatherings afterwards. But first of all, I think we all feel it. The world is more unstable. more unpredictable than it used to be. And I was in Ukraine 2 weeks ago, so I got the first-hand impression of how that insecurity and war is in the real life. For those of us in defense, this means we need to think differently, not just about what we buy, but how we keep it working, how we build and how we upgrade and maintain, of course, and how we build more secure and more solid supply chains in time of insecurity. Because supply chains are, once again, a key part of defense readiness. They're just as important as the ships, aircrafts, and weapons themselves. So to kick off this discussion, let me share 5 trends that we see shaping the defense market and how we believe that they affect both the market for naval systems and how we manage supply chains. The first trend is quite obvious, I think. It's high-tech everywhere. And the Ukrainian attack we saw on Sunday, Operational Spider's Web, demonstrated how new and also cheaper technology changes how warfare is. And dual use of technology is increasing, and the speed of innovation we see in Ukraine will influence our planning and implementation in our own long-term pledge in Norway, because we need to adapt at every level. Sensors, maintenance, logistics, each component and each system with complex supply chains that needs to be developed and maintained. The second trend we see, and that we still think is correct, even if we have a lot of innovations, is that it's evolution over disruption. New technology is added onto the technology we already have. So we don't accept to see some dramatic new ship designs in our standardized vessels that will change everything. Instead, the big shift is how fast we need to evolve and how we need to combine the existing technology and how we need to prepare to be able to use the new technology which is ahead of us, to create new possibilities and new ways of working. The third trend is continuous development. The fast pace of development means that new ships must be designed for upgrades. It's not one build and done, and then a midlife upgrade, but a system that keeps improving and a supply chain that improves with it. The fourth change is that we have vulnerable supply chains. I think we've all seen it, and the first time we actually saw it was probably during the pandemic. We have delays, we have shortages, and the prices are increasing. And no one is immune, and there are no easy solutions on that. So we have to build smarter, we have to involve more suppliers, more flexibility, more awareness of risks. And that's up to us in NDMA, but it's also important that the suppliers do that and the industry that. And we have to balance the national security of supply and national technology priorities with the international cooperations and partnerships. The first trend is sustainability. And greener ships are no longer just a climate goal. They're key to long-term access to ports, fuel, and to technology. And they open new doors for smart suppliers who can deliver new, clean, and efficient solutions. And these trends aren't just ideas, they already shape how we work, and we are striving to learn from Ukraine and how they work. And we are now increasingly planning for change from the beginning and from day one in a project, and we seek to involve industry early, and we always look at the whole picture: the time, the cost, the readiness, environment, technology, and security. But we cannot successfully address these trends alone. We need strong partners, big and small, local and international. And we continue to believe that the best principle for how to engage those partners should be through competition, either among national or international industry. And that's how we keep our market sharp, and it's also the best support of innovation. And it means that we need to maintain one of the best traditions from the defense market and from Norway, where companies and nations may be tough competitors in one area and close partners in other areas. And I believe that's both possible and essential to succeed. And Norway has a great maritime cluster, and a lot of that cluster is represented here. And one of its real strengths is the mix of civil and defense expertise, as demonstrated, for instance, through our recent procurement of the Jan Mayen class Coast Guard ship. And we've seen how useful that can be, especially when we need to move fast and think differently. This is important because none of us will ever have all the answers ourselves. Not one single country, not one single agency, and not one single company. And to bring me to the final reason why working together is important, which is the possibility to learn from each other. So how do we build more resilient supply chains? I hope the following conversation will address this from different perspectives so we can learn of each other. But I think we need to build smarter, evolve faster, and work across borders. And we have to stay open to learning for each other. Thank you very much. I look forward to the following introduction and to the conversation afterwards. Thank you.
That's perfect, Gro. Thank you very, very much. We're moving on in the program, and we have the second keynote this afternoon. Arild Skoge, a colleague of mine at Kongsberg. Welcome to the stage, Arild. He is a former Norwegian naval officer. You were the commander of His Royal Majesty's ship, the Thor Heyerdahl. Thank you. And he's also the commander, so to speak, of Kongsberg's Vanguard project, and I'm sure you will talk more about that one. Take it away, Arild.
Thank you for the introduction, Ivar. I'm not going to talk about Vanguard, but I'm talking about how we succeed collaboration between civilian and military equipment during an investment and life cycle support. What we see now is we're living, and everyone knows this, in a time frame where the technology development accelerating quite fast. Things that took years and decades before now takes months and days. And in many areas, we see civilian technology is much faster than the military system. So then we should stop up and ask ourselves the question, should we get rid of the military technology and trust on the civilian? Is this the time to do that? My answer is quite correct, no. We still need it, but the answer is much more complex than yes or no. And let me explain why by sharing some few examples from military and civilian worlds that not only are connected, but are stronger together. I will start with something that's already mentioned by Groes, unmanned drones. We have all heard about what's happening in Ukraine. And I believe if we have asked everyone here that how many drones are Ukraine able to produce during a month, nobody of you have answered 200,000 every month. That means that they have done a transformation quite impressive in Ukraine. I've been there several times by myself, seen people producing bread and butter before, now producing military equipment that's used in military operation. And that is not only happen in Ukraine. And I will give you another example. In oil and gas sector in Norway, there is quite normal business. They're controlling unmanned underwater vehicles operating out the coast of South America, doing it from Norway. Why is that happen? This has happened for many, many years. So the technology is already there. The technology that's in use, we see in Ukraine, is already in use in the civilian sector today, and it's operating every day. So what is the lessons of this part? Quantity matters. We have been focused so much on quality the last decades that we have forgotten quantity. That do not mean that quantity is the only answer to everything, but we need to think about quality and quantity when we're now looking for the future. Next one is communication. And I will share a personal story that I experienced for 1 year ago. My son is actually a first mate. It's one civilian commercial subsea ship sailing outside the coast of US. And one of my best friends, he is a captain of a frigate. And for 1 year ago, they met in the middle of the Atlantic. With my son, I made a video call. With my best friend, I was not able to connect due to bad communication link. And what do that tell me? It's not about bandwidth. It's not about paying enough for actually doing operation out there. It's about finding collaboration between civilian and military technology, ensuring that the naval force have enough equipment, following the development that's already existing out there, because it's needed to do it when the war will be in our area. The third thing I'm going to mention is military shipbuilding. For decades, as mentioned already, we have built in Europe less and less naval ship. Now, every nation shall invest in new naval ships. How are we able to do that change? We need to think smart. We need to actually share the shipbuilding and take use of also the commercial shipyard and how they operate if we are going to meet the requirement out there for the European navies. And to be honest, with so much technology on board the ship today, if a torpedo or a missile hit a ferry, or a torpedo or a missile hit a frigate, the same will happen. They will be out of service for months. Because not about the hull and the platform, but because of the technology that's on board all the ship. So again, shall we reach the ambition and the requirement, we need to think a new way of approach this. And that's bringing me into the last part, collaboration. In crisis and war, nations find together. In crisis and war, industry finds together as well. And it's supporting what's needed to meet the military requirements. And if they want to do the roadmap with combining military and civilian technology, collaboration is the answer. You cannot do that with only sitting with a mindset for how we have done it with military equipment investment before. You cannot do that with only sitting how you do civilian procurement. You need to sit together and you need to do the collaboration between the two sectors. This is about a collaboration the next coming years. It's about sectors, technology, and people. And I'm pretty sure if we ask the Ukrainian government, give me one advice that they have learned after the war, that they have told you, we should have started the cooperation with the civilian industry much, much earlier. And I'm pretty sure if you're asking also the nation around the South China Sea, you find the same answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Arild. Thank you so much to both you and to Groes. And you can come back up to the stage, please, as I introduce the other three panelists who can join us up here on stage. It's from Denmark, Mr. Kåre Groes Christensen. He is the chief executive of Odense Maritime Technology, or the OMT, a Danish company specializing in naval ship design and maritime defense solutions. Kåre, he has been involved in strategic naval projects in Denmark and allied nations for a long time, focusing on modernizing fleets and enhancing maritime security. And then from Denmark to India, we have the Rear Admiral Harish. Welcome to the stage, please. Rear Admiral is a senior officer in the Indian Navy, who used to be at least, and currently serving as the head of shipbuilding business at L&T Shipbuilding. Harish has a crucial role in advancing India's indigenous shipbuilding efforts under the Make in India initiative. And last but not least, from Bergen and Norway, the CEO of Bergen Engines. Welcome to the stage, Jon Erik Røv. Bergen Engines is a Norwegian company specializing in medium-speed engine technology for marine and land-based applications, but you're also a leading provider of naval professional systems. Wonderful. We have I think we missed your photo up here, Jon Erik. You'll have to excuse us. Here's another gentleman who is not taking part in the panel. But here's the panel, ladies and gentlemen. A great one indeed. Kåre, I'll start with you, and I will paraphrase Shakespeare, because there's something brewing in the state of Denmark. And can you tell us more about Denmark's naval expansion plans and how you guys are a big part of that, please?
Yes, I can try. So that plan is being brewed right now. It's not completely brewed. Part of it has been announced. So it is announced that that Denmark will invest in some new Arctic patrol ships that is going to be operating up around Greenland. It has also been announced that we will invest in some new Coast Guard ships for Denmark that will do environmental ships, and some new Home Guard ships. What is still brewing is the future plans for the frigates. That is still being adjusted while discussions with NATO is going on the targets for Denmark.
Great. And from Groes' speech, she touched upon how we can cooperate across borders. How do you see the potential for cooperation between Norway and Denmark and Sweden?
Well, let me start in another part of the region. We were doing a frigate program in Singapore. And we were actually competing with our friends in Sweden. And at a certain point, the Singaporeans asked the question, why are you competing in Scandinavia? Why are you not collaborating? Because you have so much interesting technology if you combine your efforts. And I think they were right, that this region has so much crisp technology in the maritime domain that if we find ways to work together in a smart way, then we can deliver quite a lot on in creating that industrial resilience that you also talked about, Groes.
Great. And Arild, you touched a lot upon on the civilian technology, but Kåre, related to that standardization and building as civilian as possible and as military as necessary. How does that play out in Denmark and at your shipyard?
Yeah, well, we don't have in Denmark. We actually started the first half of that exercise back in 2005. That was when a civilian shipyard that has never designed or manufactured a warship before, but has specialized in container ships, but doing it again and again very quickly, using these processes, using these supply chains that were used on Maersk container ships, reapplying that into defense. We started that journey back in 2005, and out of that came the Absalon and the Ivar frigates. So Denmark has experience in doing exactly what you talked about, combining, trying to take the best from the commercial world and combine it with the requirements from the Navy.
Great.
Worlds. And that is not going away, that will continue.
Fantastic. From Denmark to India, Rear Admiral, do you want to comment on anything that Kåre just said, or I have a few questions for you, but before I move on to the questions, if there is anything you would like to comment on?
First of all, good afternoon. It's a wonderful opportunity for me to be here. Nor Shipping, this is my first experience, and it is a fantastic forum to collaborate. And as she said and he said, most important thing is technology is advancing very fast. It requires a lot of investments, and the investments cannot come from one country alone. So if there is collaboration and cooperation, then the investments reduce, and then it becomes best to develop it faster. You can assemble technologies, you can assemble expertise, and you can also lower the costs. So I think there's a great future there.
Can you give us, we just heard about Denmark's ambitious new build plans and also a little bit about Norway, as I said at the start, but could you give us a short overview of how India is planning on modernizing and expanding its naval capacity?
Yeah, so India is rapidly building its naval strength, and the most important reason for that is we have a changing regional security dynamics. We are surrounded on ocean on all three sides. So we have immiscible elements in the Indian Ocean region. So security is very important for us. And in the last decade, to give you an example, we have built 40 platforms, almost 33 surface ships and 7 submarines. We built the indigenous aircraft carrier and strategic platforms. And going forward, if you see the present program, almost 62 ships are on order. And out of that 62 ships, 50 ships are under construction, and 12 ships are going to be delivered in this year. So if you look at the future, how things are going to shape up, as of now, we have a fleet strength of about 150 ships and 200 aircrafts. And going forward in 2030, we are looking at raising that number to 160. 2035, that goes to 175. And long-term vision is to look at 200 ships and about 500 aircrafts. So our defense exports also, we are collaborating with many countries. So from 2017 to now, our defense exports have grown by almost 14 times to close of $3 billion USD. So things are changing, and we feel coming here, I see many opportunities. There are a large number of firms who are working in Norway at height and technology. I think there are great opportunities in India for us to collaborate and create a better and a more safer world.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Moving on to you, Jon Erik, Bergen Engines. How are you guys positioned to play a role in Norway's big expansion plans now?
Well, we are now the third year into the new ownership. We are under Langley Holdings, and we have used those 3 years very well. We have restructured the business. We are in a really good shape. We are now in a process where we're going to grow. We're going to hire more people. So things looks very good. We are already a known supplier into the marine industry globally, and of course the North Sea, which we consider to be our backyard. We have a very strong position, and we already have lots of equipment out there in the fleet, from commercial ships to naval ships. Our naval ships, well, we are supplied to, we call them the supply ships, so it's coast guards. So we're not into the combat ships yet. But we're already supplying to Indian Navy, to New Zealand Navy, Dutch Navy, the Norwegian Navy, the Jan Mayen class was mentioned, powered with our engines. And last but not least, US Navy, It's a small secret. We are already powering a third of their tanker fleet ships.
Right.
So we are already some experience with doing the naval.
And that tanker fleet is a mix between military and civilian shipbuilding in a way, isn't it?
It's working on the U.S. Navy, but it's not military specifications on our equipment.
There you go. But how is Bergen Engines adapting its propulsion system to meet the evolving needs of modern warfare?
Yeah, good questions. And most of the ships I mentioned now is more commercial specifications.
Right.
So for all the commercial specifications, we're already meeting all the requirements. We are very good with the noise level, vibrations, but when we look at the combat ships, we are looking into what is required from our side, from engineering, to develop our engines to actually meet the military specifications as well. But that is, we have a plan. It's lots of engineering, lots of work, but we know exactly how to do it. So it's about shock absorption, etc. But we've done lots of stuff on that on engines we are supplied to nuclear power plants, which have strict requirements into that area as well. And of course, with our experience from research vessels and from seismic vessels, we know that we're good with vibration and noise.
Excellent. Thank you. Back to you, Groes. Thanks again for sharing your insight on supply chains. Anything you wish to elaborate on after hearing the views from Denmark and India and from Bergen? In Norway, we usually say that Bergen is his own country. They like to think of themselves as their own country sometimes. Isn't that one of the? But back to you, Groes. Any reflections or thoughts after hearing the perspectives here?
Yes, it could be several, but I think the one key takeaway here is actually cooperation. And as Arild mentioned, I think maybe as late as in the 90s, the military technology was top-notch and in the lead. But in the year 2000 and later, so on, the civilian technology has moved much faster. And what we see now in Ukraine is that they actually meet, and the speed of innovation on the military side, because we have this cooperation, is also increasing based on needs. And I think as different countries, we have different strengths. And in Norway, one of our strengths is actually that we are small, because we know each other. So we have actually a long tradition on combining the military and the civilian, and we have what we call the triangle model, which is the Norwegian Armed Forces, the research establishment in defense and industry, and us cooperating to bringing up excellent solutions like missiles, for instance. And India has another strength, which is the size. So it's impressive numbers of what they make. And in cooperation between nations, today Norway and Denmark signed a new agreement in cooperation into defense. And we also was an announcement that the Nordic and Baltic countries and Netherlands is going to have exactly the equal, that's vehicle 790. So I think we cooperate on different levels and in all the segments, and also with India in the information technology. It's been a long time cooperation among our countries. So to continue that and to speed up in that cooperation, that's actually my key takeaway after all those. Yeah.
Very good. Just one follow-up. Here at North Shipping, you have so many representatives of the Norwegian Maritime Cluster, and you mentioned it in your keynote, and Arild, you touched upon it too. Does the Norwegian Maritime Cluster does it have any advantages in a way in this bigger picture, or are you?
Yeah, I think so. We have really a high competent marine cluster in Norway, and we have a long coast. So when we see it from the defense side, so we need the suppliers, and if we talk about what we call the total defense, they have also a really important role in keeping up the civilian ships to transport people, goods, and everything. So without suppliers and without shipyards, we don't have any defense. So they're crucial for us.
And I got one for you now, Arild, because speaking again of the maritime cluster, we always talk about, in a Norwegian context, the ripple effects, how it affects local communities, but also other industries and other sectors when big things happen, like what's supposed to happen right now. Could you elaborate on the ripple effects of the upcoming naval expansion, please?
I think that's why it's so important for the collaboration, because we have a really long coast, and we just calculate along the coastline how many companies can contribute into a shipbuilding program. I think I counted to 1,200, and that's an enormous number of companies. And a lot of the companies, they are in small places, only living 50 to 100 people, and actually are the company in that community. And if you take that away, the whole community will disappear. So, and they are, at the same time, many of them in the world leading delivery to the export market. And that's what's impressing me. And I think we should utilize all that small companies. And you can look at Ukraine. It's doing the same. It's small companies that actually brought out for the battlefield, because the speed and the decision speed is going so fast.
Exactly. I bet it's the same in Denmark. Do you have any perspectives on, do you agree on his analysis there? Does that also apply for Denmark, that you have a cluster?
Well, I think in many ways Denmark and Norway shares a lot of common characteristics. We are rather wealthy economies, so money is not really the problem, but we are short of hands. So, and Ukraine learned us that we need to be able to replace and repair what is broken, and we cannot outsource that to somewhere else. So we need to find ways where we collaborate in this ecosystem to actually distribute the work out in the ecosystem. Maybe not only inside Denmark, but maybe within the region, because that will make us strong. So distributing some of these tasks, distributing some of these competences, make use of them, bring them together, allowing us to manufacture new products fast and efficient in as little possible man hours as possible. That is what we should try. That's the task we need to solve.
Great.
By working together.
Fantastic, Kåre. Rear Admiral, any last thoughts on when you hear the experiences in Norway and Denmark, which are two similar and small countries, whereas India is a huge country, when it comes to cooperation in the maritime cluster in India, do you find sort of the same characteristic as being explained here?
We discussed in the beginning about supply chain vulnerabilities, I think, which came out quite evidently. And with the war, with a lot of our equipment being sourced from Europe, we faced many challenges, and because of oversubscription of vendors here, and also because the Red Sea route was closed, so everything had to go through Cape of Good Hope, which meant 15 to 20 days delay in receipt of materials. So I think it is very important to have a cluster, because it brings up interrelationship between companies, and in terms of crisis, these relationships help a lot. So it also reduces your logistic cost, and it creates a sense of dynamism in the whole system. So it's very important that we look at creating clusters, creating not only with close to the shipyard, but also looking at various countries. We have collaborated with almost every country in the world. You'd find in Indian Navy equipment sourced from Israel, from America, from UK, France, Germany, you name it, every equipment is there. And how to make them work, it's like a jigsaw puzzle, where the pieces are coming from different area, and somehow the picture has to gel together and look good. So it brings a lot of innovation, and it brings a lot of strength.
Excellent, thank you. Jon Erik, you heard Groes talked about collaboration, big and small, and across borders. That's something you like. That's what you're doing for a long time.
You introduced us as a propulsion supplier. Basically, our piece is a part of a propulsion package. We need partners, and we need to collaborate with other suppliers in order to be able to deliver a complete propulsion package to move a ship forward. So we need to have good relations with different suppliers, and we are doing that. We're working very close together with many different stakeholders at the moment. But we alone are not able to move any ship forward. we need other suppliers to do that together with us.
All right. The Rear Admiral, the comment to that?
I also wanted to say that, typically in a naval ship, unlike an aircraft or a tank, which is built on a prototype model, and you build the prototype, tested it very well, and then you replicate it on an assembly line with the supply chain very clearly known before you sign the contract. The world over, the naval ships are built in small numbers. The unit costs are very high, and therefore, the supply chain sort of evolves during the construction of the ship. So the uncertainties are actually panning out during the execution of projects. That's why you see world over challenges in meeting time and cost. But if you look at commercial ships, they are made largely to standard designs with very little scope for the owners to change. And that brings in a very good discipline. So I would say from commercial ships, there's a lot of learning into the naval ships. We can go for standard design, because unless you are able to sort of design and procure in the first 50% of the build period of the ship, then you will not get adequate time to execute. So it's very important that the naval shipbuilding takes a lot of learnings from the commercial shipbuilding, both in terms of technology and process engineering. Thank you.
Thank you so much, folks. We've reached the end of this session. Thank you so much for taking part. And thank you to all of you for being here and listening to this great discussion. And also, Jon Erik, we now have your photo up here. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Thank you again. Have a good one.